Hello there, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm artist Aaron Rutten, and I am joined today by a special guest, entrepreneurial guru Evan Carmichael.
It's great to be here. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks for joining me, Evan. And we're going to talk a little bit today about how to make a profit as an artist or a creative individual. What are some of the first steps you need to go through? And what are some general tips about sustaining your career and improving upon it, optimizing it, things like that. Evan has a lot of great advice on that subject. If you're here joining us today, feel free to comment in the chat and ask us some questions, anything you want to know. And we'll also chit chat about a few things. Let's go ahead and start this off by how do you get started as a creative individual? Like, what's the very first step in your opinion?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think everybody is creative, and they need to embrace that. I think what we might be talking about for this topic is maybe artists in terms of painters or graphic designers or dancers or musicians. I think the first thing for that is to embrace the fact that you are an artist and to start to take it a little more seriously, to invest time in yourself every single day to try to get better, to improve on your craft. I think a lot of people have aspirations to want to be something greater, but then the people around them don't believe in them when they say, no, you can't make money drawing sketches, go be an accountant.
Yeah.
And then they never really pursue that dream of theirs because they're listening to the people around them instead of actually living their version of their life. And so if you have an inkling towards something, I think you owe it to yourself to at least explore it, to try it, to learn about it, to try to get better. It's never been easier. There's tons of YouTube tutorials. Aaron has a bunch of great ones on how you can improve yourself and see if it's something that makes you come alive. And what I don't want to see is people who are 70, 80 years old looking on, back on their life and regretting that they didn't actually take action on something they really love to try to do.
Yeah, I think that doubting yourself is a huge obstacle. And I feel that that's really one of the first obstacles that I overcame was doubt that I imposed on myself, but then doubt that other people imposed on me, as you kind of explained there. People will say, it's hard to make money as an artist. It's not the sure bet. You should, do this or do that. And that's kind of what they want you to do. But as Evan mentioned, you should live your life the way you want to live it. And if you want to take that risk and try to be an artist, the only way you're really going to succeed is if you try. So getting over that hump, making that huge mountain that's in front of you that says, I can't do this, or it's going to be difficult, or it's going to be impractical, moving beyond that is really a huge step. And once you get over that, everything is downhill from there, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes just from practice. If you don't practice and you don't get better and you don't challenge yourself, then you just see this big insurmountable obstacle in front of you and you don't know how to get over that. But by getting better and honing on your craft and becoming a better artist and starting to make connections, you start to see that it can be done. It gets easier. And I think you build the confidence and doubt are the opposites. You build your confidence by getting a little bit more experience and by doing the small things that scare you. You may not be able to take this huge jump and do that massive thing that freaks you out, but there are little things every day that you could do that push your comfort zone a little bit. And instead of telling yourself the story, like, I can't do it, I'm not good enough, I don't have the skills yet, whatever reason you want to throw in there, the next time you're afraid to do something, understand that it's normal to be afraid. It's not trying to avoid fear, because if you avoid fear altogether, you're living life so safe that you never take any kind of risk or bet. So it's understanding that fear is normal. It's feel the fear and do it anyway. And as you get used to pushing yourself a little bit beyond your comfort zone, then your comfort zone starts to stretch. And that thing that was scary last year, you could do in a heartbeat now. Is so super easy. I think even, when I started my YouTube channel, or maybe when you started yours too, the first video you make, you're awkward and you're nervous and you're scared and I don't want to put that up. Oh, listen to how I'm talking. And then just by the fact that you put it up and you published it, and maybe you didn't get any views or comments on it, but that gave you the confidence to do it again and do it again. And every time you've gotten better. And now it's probably super easy for you to do it. And it doesn't just happen. It's not just one big step. It's accumulation of all these little steps that you continuously take. And so the next time you feel afraid to do something, go and do it. Like, feel the fear and do it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you got to put yourself out there to get rewards and to build confidence, I think. And, even if you're just showing your stuff for free without, thinking about how am I going to make money off of this, getting people's feedback, getting people's compliments, those things will build your confidence to the point to where you're more confident taking on things that seem a little more scary or a little more challenging. So let's say we got over the hump of doubting ourselves. We're going to give this a try. We're going to do this. What are some tips you have for maybe reaching out to your first clients or getting your first gigs?
I think the first thing that you need to understand is what do you stand for as an artist? Like, what's the positive contribution you try to make to the world? I think a big challenge for artists is being understood. You could look at somebody's painting or somebody's sculpture, and how do I know that painting is better than this painting, right? There's so many different styles. And I think to the general public, the artists that do the best are the ones that can best tell their story and the ones that stand for something important. So art is great because it's about making people feel something. At the end of the day, your art needs to make somebody feel something, positive, negative. The worst thing you want is boredom. Like, somebody looks at it and like, I don't get it, and they feel nothing, right? You want them angry, happy, sad, something like emotion. That's what art is supposed to do, is move people. And so you can help move people by better explaining the story and what you stand for. So as an example, if I'm a sculptor and I make, little wooden sculptures of things, maybe what I want to do is I stand for peace, and I want the world to be a more peaceful place. And that's my ultimate ambition, is to help spread peace in the world. Well, then maybe that impacts what you're actually creating. Like, what are you going to be sculpting now, right? And that could influence what you actually come out and sculpt. You could also then give some of what you make to certain charities, or you could donate your time to be involved in certain organizations that are help spreading peace around the world. And now, if you are making doves as an example, right? It might be a symbol of peace if you're sculpting doves. Now I look at that dove as a general consumer. Evan Carmichael passes by your store, looks at your website, and I see this picture of a dove. I'm not just seeing a bird, and I can compare you to any other sculptor making a bird. I see something much more important. I see somebody who's dedicated to trying to make the world a better place and more peaceful. And so that story now resonates with me. And if I want the world to be more peaceful too, then I'm more likely to buy your bird. And if you put your bird against all the other birds, that's what's going to make you stand out and be different. So understand what it is that helps you stand out and tell your story. I think so many artists are really bad at telling their story. They like to hide behind the art. A lot of artists are very introverted and don't like limelight on them. And I know I'm massively generalizing, but understand that the story is not an ego play. The story isn't about saying how great you are. The story helps people make a connection to you and your art. The story helps add context to what you're making and gives me a background. So if I understand your struggle and the mission that you're on and how you came up with the vision for this piece, then it means something much more than just looking at a piece of art on the wall or looking at a sculpture or watching somebody dance. And so it's your job, I feel, to be able to quickly articulate what that story is and what powerful mission you are on.
Yeah. And I think having a website is a good way to really accomplish all of that, because you can talk about yourself in your bio, you can show off images that you've created for previous clients, or maybe, mock portfolio items. If you don't have any clients, you can just, make up some pretend logos and things like that and give people an idea of who you are. Because if you're just a gallery with no message, no face, nothing, there's a ton of galleries like that, and your work's not really going to stand out quite as much as it could if people can say, I like this art, this is by this person, put all the pieces together and feel like they're supporting an artist rather than just supporting a static 2D image that they like on the internet. As far as getting my first gigs, I feel like that really helped. being able to reach out to potential clients and say, I'm Aaron Rutten, I live in Seattle, these are people that I've done work for, this is what I'm into, here's the artists I like. And it gave people a sense of, in a way, kind of like they have a relationship with me, rather than when people hire artists online and it's just kind of through email and you never really get to see the person. People like to connect and they like to know who they're doing work with. Collectors like to know who they're buying art from.
Yeah, I think it can be very cold online, and you run the risk of being in a commodity game, where if you're the kind of artist where you're selling your time as opposed to just selling finished pieces, let's say, well, I could hire a graphic designer on Upwork for $9 an hour. Why should I hire you, right? And that's where the story comes in, because if all they're doing is comparing, they just figure you out as a commodity service until you force yourself to stand out and be different than everybody else.
Yeah.
I would also advise, if you're just getting started, to get involved in something else that you're really passionate about. Try to apply your art to another area where you have an equal level of passion. As an example, maybe you love gaming and you love League of Legends. There's an entire art community around League of Legends where you are creating paintings or costumes or sculptures of the various characters that are in the game. And so being involved in that other community that you love, you'll start getting feedback. If your stuff is really good, you'll start getting some recognition, some awareness. People will start wanting to hire you. And so just figure out, what else do you love besides art? And then how can you apply your art to that community to start making a name for yourself?
Definitely. Well, as far as how much to charge for your time and or your art, do you have any advice on how to do that? Because I think a lot of people get stuck there. Like, I created this painting and it took me 10, 20, 30 hours to do, how much do I sell it for? Do I sell it for $3,000 because that's really what I want? Or do I sell it for $100 because I want people to buy it?
That's a great question. And there's two ways to price something. One is based on the cost, and that's how many hours you put in and what materials you're using, depending on what you're creating. If this is made out of bronze, that's more expensive than something that's made out of plastic, right? So cost-based pricing, and that's almost the way you don't want to go. It's where a lot of people do go, and they figure, well, my time is worth X amount of dollars, but you end up working like for less than minimum wage often when you're selling your first pieces. What you want to do is sell based on value. And that becomes really difficult in the art world, because what's the value of what I'm giving, right? If I make somebody feel happy by looking at my painting, how much is that worth? And I think what it ends up coming down to is, in your own internal compass, what do you actually believe that your work is worth? And I think as entrepreneurs, not just artists, but all entrepreneurs, we tend to undervalue what our stuff is worth. And we end up charging way less than maybe we deserve. So that example, if you want to sell it for $3,000 and you're wondering, should I sell it for $100? Somewhere in there is a point where you feel like it's worth at least this. If you think it's worth at least $500 from all of the time and energy and effort and love that you put into it, that's probably where you're going to actually end up getting, because you wish that somebody could give you $3,000. That's great, but that's probably not going to happen. But if somebody came and said, hey, I'll pay you $100 for that, you say, no way, it's worth way more than $100. You know how much I put into this? And so there's a point where that lowest baseline point of what you feel your stuff is actually worth, that's typically what you're going to get. And I think this applies to every entrepreneur. When I started doing, I do a lot of work with brands. And a brand first contacted me and said, hey, we'd like you to write a post for our website. How much do you charge? I go, I don't know. How much do I charge to write? You could go by word and cost per word, but again, you don't want to play that game. And so I said, how does $500 sound? And they said, sure, no problem, $500. Like, wow, that's great. I thought I just scored a really big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the results that I was giving them and how people loved the post. And I just started increasing my pricing. And it went from $500 to $1,000 to $1,500 to now it's $2,500. And I feel at $2,500, that's a fair price. maybe you should go higher. Like my own baseline now is 2,500. Maybe it should be 10,000. I don't know, right? Like we have these limiting beliefs as to what we're actually worth. And I encourage people to start testing and challenging those, because you'll end up getting paid not what you want, but what you deep down feel like you're actually worth. And that kind of sucks, because we downgrade what we feel we're worth. And so it's a tough question. You know, you have a piece of art, what do you charge for it? You know, yes, you could put a $3,000 price tag on it, but if you don't deep down feel like it's actually worth $3,000, you're not going to get it.
Yeah.
And it comes from even the starting point. Like, what are the materials that you're using? You know, how long are you spending on it? Do you go in saying, I'm making this thing that's going to be a masterpiece I'm going to sell for $3,000? That mindset at the beginning changes what you create versus something that you might make for $100.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely have to balance cost and materials. You have to balance your time. You have to balance how emotionally attached you are to this piece, and then weigh that against what are people realistically going to pay. You know, I've sold fine art and I've sold artist services, and so there's kind of different ways to approach that. I think as far as selling art, you have originals, which obviously took you a lot of time and you're more emotionally invested in. And for those, I kind of price those a little more on what will I be willing to part with this piece for? You know, like there's some pieces I like a lot and they probably would sell if I sold them for $100, but if I had to remake that again, you know, it would take me a lot of time. So those things I don't mind pricing high. If it's something like a print, then what I will typically do is I will do a cost multiplier. So I'll say, with the print and the frame, this cost me $20 to produce. So I'll either sell it for 40 or 60 or 80 and just, you know, come up with a multiplier based on that. That makes it a little easier because since it's a print, you're not really investing that much time into it. So that makes it a little easier to price. As far as pricing yourself, as far as performing artist services, let's say you're doing commissioned portraits or you're doing work for hire, graphic design, illustration, anything like that, you have to kind of look at what other designers are charging and maybe come up with, you know, your rate kind of based on that. You could also just not advertise a rate and just bid each job, you know, think about it, decide how many hours you think you're going to put in and just bid each job. And I kind of started out advertising an hourly rate, and I found that over time it just became easier to bid jobs. Because then I'm not getting locked into this hourly thing. You know, I can aim a little high and then I have a little bit of a ceiling. That way, if things go over, which they usually do, that, you know, everybody's expectations are met. Listen to your clients. If you have clients that say you're really affordable, you should charge more, definitely charge more, because I've had 2 or 3 clients actually say you need to charge more, and I did, and then people were more than happy to keep paying me more because I assumed I was only worth this much because I only have this much experience. And I really deflated myself in a way when I shouldn't have. You know, it doesn't mean that I should have started off charging top dollar. I had to work my way up little by little. As Evan said, you know, with each job, you push for a little more and a little more, and then eventually you kind of see what the limit is. So, you definitely want to pick a good starting rate, but build upon that as you gain experience. How about making time? Like, let's say now I've decided I'm going to be an artist or a creative individual. I'm going to start my own business. I'm going to start making money. I've got some clients. I'm getting my first gigs, but I have a day job that's paying my bills, and things are kind of starting to converge. How do I start to kind of manage my time better or make time? Do I try to do more work on my days off, or do I start thinking about, you know, maybe eliminating the day job and focusing more on the creative side? What do you think?
That's a great question. And I'm actually a big believer in starting part-time and starting on the side. I'm not the guy who says, go all in, quit your job, you know, set fire to your boss's desk and quit. And right. I think it's okay to start part-time, start on the side. I think the point where you want to quit your job is twofold. One, you want to take a job where you're learning, ideally, right? You're learning something. The point of having a job isn't just to pay the bills, it's to learn something. So hopefully at your company, you're learning something that will help you in your business. So whether you're at some kind of creative company already, or whether you are in a business that you have something that you can learn from, maybe you're doing sales or you're doing marketing, and you can, bring that to your company. If you feel like your job is just a paycheck, then you should go and find another job. Find a job where you can learn something from and get paid, and you're getting paid to make mistakes so that when you go and start your business, you're gonna have less mistakes and be more successful. You leave your job when you're able to survive and when you stop learning, right? Like, I'm not learning anything else at this job. Can I support myself full-time from my art income? If not, then okay, I need to go back and get another job where I'm gonna be on Social Security.
Yeah.
But if I can, and I'm not talking about living luxury, I'm talking about paying the internet bill and the cell phone bill and being able to eat, right?
Yeah.
Surviving. If you can get to that point, then that's when you start and you quit your job, you go full time. There is that balance to match, and I think it can be hard when you're dealing with clients where it's a project based. Like, I need this done by this amount of time. Where if you're creating your own art, it's more on your schedule. If it is something on your schedule, I'd say make sure that you dedicate time every day to your art. If there's nobody pushing you, if there's no client, there's no deadline, it's easy to push it off. Like, oh, I'm too tired, work was stressful, I'm just gonna have a beer and relax. No, you gotta spend 30 to 60 minutes every single day on your business if you want it to eventually become something.
Yeah.
If you do have people who are on you and you have fixed deadlines with, this might be a controversial approach, but I would be honest with them. I would let them know that I have another job and that this is something that I'm working on as a passion project, and let them know when you can and cannot work, and work with the people who are okay with that. So you set expectations, because if they expect people to call you at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you're at your day job, that's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, it is definitely tricky, and I've been there myself, where I had the day job, and it kind of came to a point to where I realized, with all the time and effort that I'm putting into this day job, I could take a little bit of a risk, not work there anymore, and then have more time to spend taking in graphic design gigs. And I knew it was a risky thing, and it was a risky thing. All of my work could have fallen through, and no more clients, and everything could have dried up. But that's like the worst case scenario, and it didn't work out that way. I feel like I kind of transitioned into the two. There was a crossfade. It wasn't like I quit. I definitely made sure that I had enough work coming in, and it really got to the point to where the day job was interfering with the creative job. I realized that the day job was holding me back, and that was the point to where I knew I needed to kind of cross over into the creative job. And I definitely don't regret doing that. And I know that it took me a while to get to that point. A lot of it was overcoming that self-doubt and convincing myself that a job is a job. I could be working for someone else, but I'm also just as capable of working for myself. And once I got to that point, I think it was pretty easy. I took the leap and I went for it. And starting out, it wasn't easy. I didn't have the security of the day job, but sometimes day jobs aren't really that secure anyways. You can get laid off, or your hours can get cut back, all kinds of things. And so now I realize that it's something that I really should have convinced myself to do it. I don't know. I mean, I guess I had to build up to it, but I really should have convinced myself to do it a lot earlier, rather than wasting a lot of time on that day job. How about let's see. Let's segue a bit into maybe sustaining your business. So let's say maybe you've quit your day job. You're a full-time artist now, a full-time creative individual. You're doing your own thing. How do you sustain that business? What are some things you can do to where you don't run out of clients, or you don't get stale? People don't kind of forget about you, and you blend into the other million designers out there.
Yeah. So I think the first thing is, again, back to the last question, not going full time until you have some ongoing incoming stream. Not like, hey, I sold one piece of art. Okay, I'm going to quit my job. And like, oh, I can't sell another one.
Yeah.
You know, that can be super risky. So I would say you need to have a plan to continue to give yourself some exposure, whether that's making YouTube videos about your design process and kind of behind the scenes, whether it's taking Instagram or updating your website or doing collaborations like we're doing right now. You need to have some kind of marketing plan. And I think in terms of getting stale, I think the biggest thing is figuring out how can you change your art as you change yourself. What I find a lot of times happens to a lot of entrepreneurs is they start doing something and they get known for it, and it's great at the start. Like you might be known for one kind of art. You know, maybe you're just doing caricatures, and that's great. That's how you made a name for yourself. But then you get bored of caricatures, and the more you go down the caricature line, the more you're kind of stuck in that rut. And you know, your caricature line's gone like this, and you're going like this, but you still here because it's the business. You need to constantly be evolving the work that you're doing as you evolve as a human being. So as you're finding new interests, new joys, new passions, always be experimenting in your art. Try different materials, try different subject matters, try different passions. And it may not work, but that's part of the fun and the joy, is constantly testing new things out. And so that helps you never get stale and also build new markets that may not have existed for you before.
Yeah, I think if you're not bored with yourself, then other people aren't going to be bored with you. And I've gone through a lot of transitions. I mean, I started out when I was in college. I wanted to design logos with rulers on paper, you know, and then I transitioned to, okay, well, now I'm doing logos on a computer, and I want to be a graphic designer, and that's how I'm going to make a living. And then I got sick of graphic design, and you know, I decided I wanted to be an art educator, and now that's kind of what I'm doing. I think that, you know, I could have stuck with one thing and I could have got really good at it, but I didn't necessarily really want to like pigeonhole myself and be a graphic designer. I want to be an artist, and I feel like that encompasses a lot of different things. It encompasses education, design, illustration. You know, it could extend to lots of other things, writing and film and all kinds of stuff. And that's kind of my vision for myself, is to not really be one thing in particular, but to be a mix of a lot of different things. I think you can really see that in still lifes and portraits and a lot of different things that look like they're a mishmash of work by a lot of different artists. But I feel like that keeps me feeling fresh. It keeps me excited about what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis. I'm not going into it going, oh, I got to do another design for somebody. YouTube really helped kind of, I don't know, it kind of helps me keep from getting stale, because YouTube, me putting myself out there on YouTube really opened up a lot of opportunities for people to see what I'm capable of. You know, my website's a very small little focused place for people to go, but YouTube kind of opens me up to a lot more people. And in doing that, I've built some connections with the software and hardware companies that produce the equipment that I use when I'm creating my art. And I think in building those relationships, I get to now beta test and work with these companies so that I'm kind of, in a way, on the leading edge of the technology that I'm using. And so I can't really get stale. You know, if only I and a small percentage of artists are aware of things as they're coming up, you know, we're gonna have the information before everyone else. So it's going to be a lot harder to get stale, I guess, if you're that fresh.
Yeah, I think art, more than anything else, is about passion. If you are not passionate about what you're creating, you'll never create great art. It's not going to happen. That's what art comes from, passion. And so if you lose your passion, then you have to move towards something that you are passionate about again. Like Aaron moved from graphic design to being an art educator. Some people go into graphic design and they love it, and that's their passion, and they become, you look at the top people in the industry, they love what they're doing. And there's nothing wrong with being the world's best graphic designer, right? It's just not Aaron, right? He wanted to move to something else. And until you have the courage to follow what you're really passionate about, you're never going to create something amazing and great.
What are your opinions on finding and capitalizing on opportunities? Like, I know a lot of success is based upon opportunity, and you know, it seems like for some people stuff just falls out of the sky and lands in their lap, and you know, all of a sudden they've got a gig for this company, or they're doing a commission for a celebrity, or you know, something really meaningful. Are there certain ways that you can make yourself more receptive to opportunities or more aware of them?
Yeah, I think first of all, you have to understand the kind of person you are and play to your strengths. Just like what in your art, you're playing to your strength and doing something that you are good at. You know, you may not be the best salesperson, so you're not going to have a lot of success going out and trying to do sales. Even me, it may not come across in this interview, but I'm much more of an introvert. I need my quiet time. I don't like being around people all the time. And as a result, I'm not great at doing sales where you're picking up the phone and cold calling people. And so if my business relied on that, I would fail. I would suck. It wouldn't be something that I would have success with. My success comes from kicking up a lot of noise in my industry, and then people come to me. So I've had a lot of success through marketing instead of sales. And so I'll do a lot of educational content, just like Aaron does, but in the entrepreneur space. And I spend an insane amount of time and pour a lot of love into that. And then people see that and share it. You know, they love what they watch, and they end up coming to me and say, hey, Evan, do you want to come and speak at our conference? Or do you want to come work with this brand? And that's how I get a lot of my deals. It's by kicking up a ton of noise in my industry, and people then come and find me. So that works for me because it plays to my style. I'm much more marketing and creating really valuable pieces of content. So you got to find what fits best with you, because you could try to do that and like, oh, this is so boring. I hate doing this. Right? If you're waking up every day and seeing that you hate, you know, what you're about to do, you got to change something, right? Yeah. And so I think that took me a little while to figure out, just self-analysis, to figure out what was the best strategy for me. And you got to find what's the best strategy for you too. So I think for a lot of artists, even just putting up some content, like we talked about on YouTube, having a how I'm making it, telling your story, why you're doing it, staying relevant, being involved in the industries and markets that you like being in besides just art, and constantly putting out new stuff, I think will keep your name fresh, and people keep seeing your work, and then they want to eventually come and work with you.
Yeah, being consistent is definitely important, because it's easy to sign up for something like Instagram or Tumblr and post one blog, and then, you know, you only get a couple of views or a couple of followers, and then you go, it's not worth my time. But you have to keep doing it. It's something that you have to do on a regular basis. You know, my first few YouTube videos, I think, you know, probably didn't get very many views at all, and you know, but the few people that did watch them really appreciated them. And I could see that if I made more videos, more people would watch them. And now it's kind of, you know, it's an obvious trend. You know, the more videos I make, the more engaged I am with my channel, the more content I produce that people are going to want to watch, the more my channel is going to grow. I would say even if YouTube is not your thing, start a blog if you're more of a writer, on Tumblr, and write about your experiences. When you're starting a painting or starting a sculpture or starting a design or a logo, show your initial steps, talk about how you formulated the ideas, talk about the story behind the piece, and give people a sense like they're involved with your work. And then take that and spread that everywhere. You know, take everything you can that you have and thoroughly saturate the internet. As Evan mentioned, it's hard for some people to be really focused on their artwork and then also split in half and become this like manager / business person that then has to actually take that artwork and figure out how to get people to buy it or get people to see it. And it's a difficult thing, but I think it is entirely possible. If you think about it less like you're going to have to go, you know, door to door like a vacuum cleaner salesman, you can do it in a more passive way through social media and just post, you know.
I think it has to, yeah, no, I love what you're saying. I think it has to also, you have to enjoy the process of it. Somebody asked me this morning, how did I get to 150,000 subscribers on YouTube? At the beginning, I spent a disproportionate amount of time making my videos where logically it didn't make sense. Like, I spent more time than I was getting paid from advertising and clients, because I love the process. I loved making the YouTube videos. And so if you wake up every day and think, oh, I got to make a YouTube video because Aaron and Evan said to, and you hate it, like it's not going to be a winning strategy for you. So it's got to be something that I would see it as just an extension of your creative process, right? So apply the creation that you're doing to making this beautiful painting. How can you extend that out to then creating a behind the scenes or beautiful videos or beautiful blog posts or beautiful pictures that go up on social media? Try to enjoy the process, and if you do that, you'll have a lot more success than if you try to force yourself to go out and do something.
Yeah, and I think something worth mentioning are live streams too, because that's kind of it's not a new thing, but it's newish. I think in the ease of which people can kind of get into it and do it. You know, if you're not a video editing person and you don't want to have to, you know, perform in a video or act a certain way in a video, you just want to be yourself and you just want to go for it, do a live stream, and you don't even have to, say anything. You could just have the camera on your hand and just draw and just show people what you do. Or if you want to be more engaging, you could, take requests from people, and that's a really good way to build an audience. It's a really good way to build up watch time, because if you're streaming for an hour or two, and a lot of people watch your stream, you're racking up hours and hours of watch time there, which makes you rank higher. So I think live streaming is definitely something to consider if you're an artist and you want to show off what you do.
On the kind of staying motivated side, I would also say expect to suck at the start. Expect to suck. Like, you are going to suck. Your first video, your first whatever is probably going to suck really, really badly. And that's okay. And I think it's especially hard for artists because artists have high standards. You have high standard for yourself. When you create a piece of art, it has to look a certain way. It's better than other, pieces, and you want it to get better and better every time. So artists have these insanely high standards, which is great and serves you in being an artist. But then you apply those high standards to something that you're not good at, you're going to suck. So just like the first time you picked up a pencil and tried to draw something, or the first time you picked up a snowboard and tried to go down a hill, you sucked. And so that's normal. It's okay. Your first video will suck. The next one will get better, and the next one will get better, and eventually reach the point where your skills match your expectations. Because your expectations are really high and your skills are down here, and slowly you'll catch up.
Yeah, it's a learning experience. I mean, I'd probably shudder to watch any of my first few videos, because I'm not talking to an audience. I don't have an audience. I'm talking to the camera as if I'm in a room by myself and I'm the only other person there that's ever going to watch that video. And, I paid for it in the comments, because a lot of those first videos, people are like, robot voice. This guy's got a robot voice. He sounds like Leonard Nimoy or something. And, you have to learn, and you have to grow from that. You have to go, okay, I mean, if that's something that I'm really concerned about is being as appealing as possible through my audio in my videos, maybe I'll try to put a little more inflection on some of my words. Maybe I'll try to speak like I'm actually having a conversation with another person rather than talking to myself. And you do improve, whether it's making videos or whether it's painting or drawing portraits or sculpting or anything. You're gonna start out and you're gonna be frustrated, but the more you work on it, the better you're gonna get. Bob Ross would always say, I hope you're plagued with dissatisfaction, because in being dissatisfied with your work, you're always going to try to do better. And so that kind of comes with being an artist, but it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
I like it. Bob Ross, he's a legend.
Yeah, definitely. And Bill Alexander too. He gets kind of overlooked, but he was Bob Ross's original teacher.
Cool.
Pretty exciting guy. How about optimizing your business? Do you have any tips about how to kind of streamline things once let's say your business is really going, you're selling tons and tons of art, you're getting clients all over the place. How do you make a little more time for yourself? Are there some ways to kind of, I remember you said automate, delegate, and eliminate. Are those some things that we can apply to being creative?
Yeah, for sure. So the order is eliminate, automate, delegate. And the reason is a lot of entrepreneurs and artists are doing things that you shouldn't be doing. Like, just flat out do not help your business grow, do not help you grow as a person. You're just doing it because somebody told you to do it, or it's been a habit for a while and you've outgrown it. There's a lot of stuff in your calendar that you just shouldn't be doing anymore. So you want to eliminate it. And things that you think may be really high value, as an example, I run a mastermind group where we meet once a month, entrepreneurs, and get together. And I kept notes, minute notes of what everybody said that we're going to do. And I sent it to everybody. And then one month I was just too overwhelmed. I had too much stuff going on, and I forgot to send out the notes. I didn't have the time to write it out. Nobody cared. Nobody wrote to me and said, where were the minutes? Where were the notes? Nobody cared. And then from then I stopped doing it, because that took me a good hour and a half after every meeting. And I just freed up an hour and a half of my time that I thought was high value and nobody cared about. And so there's constantly things that you're doing that you can just eliminate. Next is automate, and it's finding anything that you're doing repeatedly, you want to try to batch together as much as possible. There's nothing worse, especially in the creative process. If you are trying to write a page, or you're trying to create the perfect stroke on that painting, and then somebody calls you, and then you answer it, and then you've just lost your flow totally, right? That sucks. And so you want to really make sure that you chunk out your time so that you have distraction-free zones that allow you to be creative and allow you to stay in the flow. And as many processes as possible that you can automate. So look to software, look to technology to help you do things better. Easy ones are accounting software, right? A lot of people use just Excel or shoeboxes, and it's just a nightmare at the end of the year, where if you spend, $10 a month, you get an accounting software package. You think of it, I'm spending $10. I don't want to spend $10 a month, but it frees up so much more of your time to do the stuff that you love. And there's tons of things that you might be able to apply technology to make your processes better. And then the last one is delegate. The reason why it goes in that order is you don't want to automate something that should be eliminated. You don't want to delegate something that should be automated. Yeah. So you delegate last, and that's basically finding a team of people who now can help you take your business to the next level. One of the best people in the world at, and then surround yourself with people who can help you with the rest. So that's how I grew my YouTube channel quickly. It took me 5 years to get to 100,000 subscribers, and then 2 months after that to get to 150,000 subscribers. Now I have a team. When I started, it was me doing everything on camera, researching, editing, putting pictures in, putting the soundtrack, putting it up on YouTube, adding the description, everything. And I'm not good at most of that stuff, right? I'm best being in front of the camera. And so as my business grew, I was able to bring on a team, and there's 6 of us now who work on the YouTube channel. And my main role is to be in front of the camera and then approve everything that goes out. And everything else is taken care of by other people. Now, it doesn't mean you go out and, you may not be able to afford to hire somebody right away to start, when you start your business. But you can hire somebody part-time. The first guy I ever hired was for 1 hour a day. That's it, 1 hour a day. And that freed up more than an hour of my time a day, because he was better at that task than I was. And you can look at places like Upwork and find people who would be willing to work part-time, hour a day, couple hours a week, doing jobs that you don't want to do to allow you to focus on the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've definitely gone through that process. Not so much in the delegation. I think that's something that, I feel like I could give projects to people, but I don't know if they'd be done in the way that I'd want them to. So I'm working towards that, because it's going to save me time if I do. Eliminate, I've definitely done. In 2011, I did this project called 365 Days of Art, where I created one piece of art for every day of the year.
Nice.
It took a lot of focus. I had to really eliminate a lot of things, down to, not even so much like not going out as much, because I still had a social life, but I cut back on weird things. Like I had really long hair, like down to my shoulders. I cut my hair really short, because then all I had to do was get up in the morning and go whoosh. That's the origins of this haircut is because I didn't want that extra however much time I had to spend.
Look at my hair.
Yeah, well, that's
even easier. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, even with like food, I would eat just really simple things. I wouldn't spend a lot of time making dinner, and so eliminate really helped me to accomplish that. I'm getting more into the automation now, because I'm at the point to where I need a little bit of help. And I think, TurboTax is really good, or any kind of accounting management software. That's going to save you a lot of time and a lot of headache, because, as long as you keep track of all your receipts and all of your expenses and income and everything, you plug it all in, TurboTax does the rest. It's effortless. Google Calendars has been really helpful. I'll have tasks that I need, maybe deadlines or things that I need to do on a certain date. Those are firm, but I can also plug in ideas or things that maybe I want to do on a day when I have free time. And then my schedule's fluid, so I can take those things and I can, move them from Monday over to Friday, and then that way I can always have something on my plate that I can look at and go, what do I want to work on today? Maybe knock out a few of those tasks, take the rest, move them, distribute them throughout the week. And having that, I don't know if that's really technically automation, but it's a lot faster than going into WordPad and writing a bunch of lists or writing them down on paper, and then you have all these notebooks full of lists that just get lost. I mean, I don't know how many notes and things that I have on my computer that are just buried and I'll never find again. Using something like Evernote is actually really helpful, because then I could type in a little note when I'm out of my office on my phone, sync it, then I can get back to my office and then pull it up on my desktop computer. And so little time-saving things like that, I think, really help.
And that's the idea, is that it saves you time so that you can focus on doing the stuff that you love to do.
Yeah, definitely. We have a question from one of the viewers. It is from Pete, and Pete says, do you have any tips for a fellow artist who is blind, vision impaired? Fun fact, my art is pixel and it's on a grand scale.
I know Pete. Pete's a loyal viewer. I love it. Yeah, Pete he's a pixel artist, and he's mostly blind. And I love what Pete started to do, where he did tribute pictures. And so he did one of me, and he did one of, I want to say Gary Vaynerchuk. It could be off there. I would continue to reach out and do more of those, but find something that you're really passionate about. So as an example, he did a League of Legends one of a character, but he hasn't been consistent in doing them regularly, right? It'd be great to be known as the pixel artist who does this, right? And people will share that. So if you do a pixel caricature of somebody and they like it, they're going to share it. And that's an easy way to get your name being spread out. There was a guy who made pancake caricatures and reached out to me, and he said, I want to make a YouTube video of me making you into a pancake. Mm-hmm. Pancake artist who's got like dough. Have you seen these guys? Dough in a little squeeze bottle, and they squeeze it out onto a pan, and then makes it look like whatever they're trying to draw. And then he flips it, and like, there's that guy. And so when that came out, I'm like, I gotta share this. And so I shared it to all my audience, and he got more attention and awareness too. And so I'd start doing more of that and be consistent with it, because I've only seen maybe 3 or 4 that Pete has put out, and I'd love to see a new one coming out every week, even if they're small. Like, I understand the big pieces take a lot of time. Do something small, something that makes you say, wow, something I want to share with my audience, and that gives you a lot more exposure.
Yeah, I checked out his channel. I think the one thing that I would recommend would be show your process. Like, you have a lot of videos where they're you commenting on your piece and the piece is static, but I would do some screen recordings from beginning to end and then do a time lapse, and then people can see that develop. And while you're talking about it, you've got you on one side of the screen talking, and then your time lapse going on the other. I think that might be a little more engaging, and it might kind of clarify how it is that you go about your process. That gets back to what we were talking to earlier about showing your process. And kind of connecting people to it. You can talk about it, but sometimes showing it is also very effective.
Yeah, I think Pete's done at least one of those, but again, it hasn't been consistent. And I think about there was a Photoshop commercial, or somebody made a video of turning a slice of pizza into a woman. I don't know if you've seen that. But it's a cool, like, couple-minute video where they take a slice of pizza and they turn it into this beautiful woman. And it's just to show that you could do pretty much anything you want in Photoshop. Yeah. But that would be cool to, I think, to Aaron's point, Pete, I think, one, maybe making them tighter, because I remember the ones that you did make are really long. So maybe tightening that up. And again, doing it more consistently so people see what's behind the process.
Yeah, you gotta just keep on keeping on, and it'll get there. Because I can look back at my stats and actually see everything's starting off kind of slow, and then it ramps up over time. So consistency is really the only way to keep that going.
Yeah, and you can also do, you can ask for requests on your channel too. Like if you make a beautiful picture or something and then you show the process, you can say, hey, what do you guys want me to make next? Where a lot of my videos, almost all my videos now on my channel come from user or viewer requests. Yeah. Like, hey, can you do this next? And so that's what we do.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got tons and tons and tons of ideas. A lot of them come from viewer requests. I just add them all to my list and go through as many as I can. But it saves me from having to come up with my own ideas sometimes, because if you're getting a request from a viewer, you have a pretty good idea that that's going to be something that at least one person is going to be interested in. Whereas sometimes I have ideas for videos that I think are like the best idea ever, and everyone's going to watch this, and then nobody watches it, because it's something that only I'm interested in, apparently. So, and then we could throw out collaboration there. If there's other pixel artists that you want to connect with and do some, you could collaborate on the same piece, or just interview people and do hangouts like Evan and I are doing today. That's also a good way to build your audience. Because if there's pre-existing pixel artists out there who already have an audience, their audience is more than likely going to enjoy your work, and vice versa. So, yeah,
and I'd expand the scope too to look at non-pixel artists, look at other artists, look at musicians who might need a music video, and you work together, you create a pixel version music video, right? All of these other kinds of artists that are trying to get their work out are potential collaboration opportunities for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Evan and I were talking about this earlier, but there's viewers who watched the last hangout we did who were subscribers of his and subscribers of mine, and it's kind of interesting to see that overlap. The conversations that we're having today and in the last hangout, I think, are really helpful to both of our audiences, because there's some members of both of our audiences who kind of encapsulate both of our messages really well.
One resource you might want to check out is Tube. Oh, what's it called? Tube. Oh my God, now I gotta look it up. No, app. Let me find it. Tubular Labs.
Tubular Labs, yeah.
I don't know if you know Tubular Labs, Aaron, but Tubular Labs allows you to, it's for YouTube, it allows you to put in your channel, and it shows you a whole bunch of stats on it. And it also allows you to put in other people's channels, and it shows comparison data. The two things I like about it in terms of collaborations, one, it shows you who your influential fans are. So if you have fans that have YouTube channels, now you may not have a lot of subscribers, but some of them might have their own YouTube channel. That might be an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, do you want to do some kind of collaboration together? They're already subscribing to your channel, so they know who you are. It's not a cold message coming out. The other ones are, if there's somebody that you really look up to, you can look to see who's on their channel and who is subscribed to your channel as well, who you have kind of joint audiences with. And those might be people then you could reach out to say, hey, we have a lot of similar subscribers. Maybe there's an opportunity to do some kind of collaboration together.
Definitely. And I think if you're kind of part of the YouTube art community in general, you're going to have a pretty good idea of who's out there, and, reach out to people, even if they have a lot more subscribers than you. I know starting out, it's kind of hard because you might start out and only have like 100 subscribers. And, I'm sure if you ask PewDiePie or somebody to do a collaboration with you, he's probably not going to go for it, but a lot of people will. So I definitely recommend checking that out.
Yeah, you can definitely reach above. I've done collaborations with people. I remember I did one with Tim Schmoyer, who does a lot of video stuff, where he was, he wasn't twice my size, but he had a good number of subscribers on me. I'm ahead of him now, but at that time it was a much bigger gap. I think even between our channels is how many subscribers do you have now on yours?
I think I'm like 22.
So that's a great example, right? Aaron has 22. I have 150 something. And we're still getting a great collab going on, right? I'm introducing him to my audience. He introduced me to his. Here's what I did. I looked at Aaron's stuff, and I said, oh, this guy has some interesting, cool stuff and a unique perspective, and I think that could help my audience. That's really much more what I'm looking at than, oh, this guy only has X number of subscribers. right? So it's making sure you have quality videos and seeing if there's any kind of matchup. Because you reach out to me, I'm going to check out your channel. If I'm not impressed by something, then I'm not going to want to do a collaboration.
Yeah. And,
so I think that's much more important than the numbers.
Yeah, I think so too, because, like Evan mentioned, if you go on those YouTube stat websites, you can actually compare yourself to other YouTube channels that may have more subscribers than you. And you can look at things like how many views do they have total. And, you might find in some cases, in fact, I found that there are a lot of channels that have way, way, way more subscribers than me, but they have significantly less views. So subscribers aren't everything. I would look at it from the point of view too. Don't just go hunting for big channels that have a lot of subscribers. You definitely want to make sure that you have some connection that you can kind of make with that person. Like when I looked at Evan's channel, I watched the videos and they were inspirational to me. I found that from what I do as an entrepreneur, that I could benefit from that information. And I could also tell that, people who watch my videos could benefit from those tips as well. So.
Yeah, and I think also, expect to suck in your first collaboration too, right? So go with somebody who is a little lower risk, and you don't, create a negative first impression with your first one. Yeah. Even if you have friends that you want to just practice doing, it's a different skill being on with somebody else than being on by yourself. And being on by yourself is nerve-wracking and crazy and hard enough to get used to, but then having somebody else on, there's going to be awkward silences and not sure who's going to talk next, and it can create its own weird dynamic that you got to get used to. So just start. Your first ones will suck, and you'll get better and better and better each time.
Mm-hmm. So I think we got one more question, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. This is from Telmo. Telmo says, "Hi guys, I'm a digital artist. I would like to know where you do your majority of your new clients, or where do the majority of your new clients come from? YouTube, word of mouth, or a website/place?" I'll go ahead and answer that. As far as where I get the majority of my clients from, it's not really one thing. It's a pie. If you think of a pie chart, and each slice of that pie is really important. YouTube is a big slice. Word of mouth is definitely a big slice. And my website definitely. I don't really have to advertise a whole lot in the traditional sense anymore because I've kind of built up a reputation. But before I had that reputation, honestly, almost all of my work came from Craigslist or trying to, like doing like cold call emails and just saying, well, I guess it wasn't really a cold call email, but finding ads or finding people inquiring about graphic design or art services, and then emailing them and saying, I'm Aaron Rutten, that these are the services I provide. Here's my website. I'd be glad to help you, etc. But a lot of it just came through advertising. I didn't go out and hand out business cards, and I didn't, pay for advertising or anything like that. A lot of it was organic. Having the website helps, and having a really well optimized website is going to make it easier for people to find you. That doesn't mean that you have to pay somebody $5,000 to optimize your website. Just make sure that you have good content, you have lots of good keywords and lots of good descriptions, and then you'll rank higher. And just make sure that you're staying kind of targeted, for a very targeted audience. Like I could advertise myself as a visual artist, but how many visual artists would I be competing with? Instead, I'm a digital artist. That narrows it down a bit. I'm a digital artist who specializes in Corel Painter. That narrows it down even more. I have Corel Painter 2016 tutorials, which narrows it down even more. That way, when a very specific person is looking for me, they're going to find me.
Cool. From my end, it's always been where I've invested my time. And so when I was first getting started out, I used my website a lot. And the more energy I put into my website, the more leads and information and clients I would get. I transitioned. I still have my website, but I just fell in love with YouTube, and that's where I spend tons of my time. And so that's where I'm kicking up a lot of noise, and that's now where I'm getting a lot of new clients coming into me. You want to get more referrals, and you need to spend your time investing into the client relationship, right? Over deliver on what you promise, follow up, have lunches with them, take them out to coffee, maintain that relationship. So I think wherever it's kind of a soft answer, but it's valuable, because wherever you spend your time, that's where you're going to get the results from. And you want to be spending your time on the things that you are good at and feel excited about, right? Because I get the sense sometimes from the questions like this that, oh, you know, YouTube is working really well for Aaron and Evan, so I got to get on YouTube. And YouTube may not be the greatest platform for you, right? We're all in on it because we're passionate about it, and we're now investing a ton of our time into it. And I was putting disproportionate amount of time and love into it before I ever got clients out of it because I enjoy the process of doing it, right? Yeah. So YouTube can work really, really, really well if you enjoy the process of YouTube. If you're doing it, again, just because Aaron and Evan said to, it's probably not going to work. And so you can have success with any path as long as you're committed to it and you enjoy the process.
Yeah, I think a lot of people expect to work now and get paid now because that's how it works at your job, right? You show up, you put in your time, you get your paycheck every month or every week or every 2 weeks. But with something like YouTube or you know, being a creative entrepreneur, you're going to have to do a lot of stuff for free, but eventually you will make money from that. So there's kind of a delay in getting rewarded for the time you put in, but it will happen if you're passionate and you stick to it. So that brings us to the end of our magical hour here, talking with Evan Carmichael. You can check out more of Evan Carmichael's videos on his channel, Evan Carmichael, and his website, evancarmichael.com. Evan, I really appreciate you doing these collaborations with me and for sharing your wisdom with the audience today.
Cool, thanks for having me. And for those of you watching, we did one on my channel before, and Aaron shared a ton of great info there too. Similar topic, different questions, so you can check that out too and learn more from both of us.
Yeah, and I'll put a card in the video and a link. I believe if there's not already a link, I'll add one down below.
Cool.
So anyways, thanks Evan, and thanks everybody for joining us today.
Thank you guys. See you soon.
We'll catch you next time. Bye.